Hello, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this small forum. I want to first express my gratitude to Michael Dowd and Kevin Tracy and the rest of the fine folks at Northwell Health for all the wonderful things they do, and in fact for hosting the Constellation Forum of 2022 and allowing me and the really eminent Dr. Michael Dolsten to be part of this panel that we're going to have today. So without taking up too much time, I'm going to introduce myself briefly, and then I'm going to allow Dr. Dolsten to introduce himself. So my name is Geoff Ling. I'm the CEO of On Demand Pharmaceuticals, which is a startup, and it is a company that is developing technology for point-of-care manufacturing of medications. That is a machine that is housed at a hospital or a clinic to make the medicines that they want using starting materials that can be sourced from very secure sources, so they don't have supply chain issues. I spent a career in government. I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel, served in Iraq and Afghanistan as a neurointensive care physician, and I served on President Obama's staff as his deputy director for medical innovation. And then I also served 13 years at DARPA, where I was the founding director of the Biological Technologies Office at DARPA. So I'm going to push back to you, Dr. Dolsten, so that you can give your background as well, please.
Thank you. It feels really great to be here together with you in this mini panel. I hope we'll be able to convey some really scientific, inspiring aspects of where we are in the world today. I'm Mikael Dolsten, and I'm a physician scientist, and for more than a decade, I've been leading the Pfizer's worldwide research, development, and medical organization. Well, what's particular focus for our conversation today is that March 2020, I was really privileged to be at the front seat, the front row, leading Pfizer teams, taking up the battle against COVID, standing on two pillars. Our vaccine partnership with BioNTech to develop what later was called Comirnaty, the mRNA vaccine, and with our antiviral team taking on to develop a treatment for COVID-19. It's been busy, exhilarating, and also very rewarding couple of years working in this intense scientific environment. The real privilege has been working with such talent, such dedicated scientific colleagues that pushed all of us to think bigger, bolder, but never compromising on what we're trained in, scientific rigor and discipline, to always put our eyes and efforts for the details to be right. Well, we were fortunate that we had been on a transformational journey for about a decade, trying to build a resilient R&D organization that could be ready to take on challenges and do it in a very agile manner. So in that way, I think we felt the confidence that when COVID-19 struck the world, that we could mass our resources and contribute to provide hope and medical advance. Still, it's amazing to think back that what normally take many years, we did in 7 months develop Paxlovid. Sorry, in 9 months we developed Comirnaty, our mRNA vaccine, and in less than 2 years, 17 months, we developed Paxlovid, a small molecule, oral available inhibitor of SARS-CoV-2. This really shows what indomitable spirit of scientific innovation can achieve with breakthroughs that are unprecedented. You have to be at the right moment in time when suddenly lots of medical insights about the disease converge with availability of new technological platforms, whether mRNA for the vaccine or medicinal sciences linked to AI for designing the key ingredient in Paxlovid. and at the same time, the ability to tap into large resources put at risk with the belief that science could offer new hope for the world. It's been, as I said, very special years, the experience of a lifetime, as we were able to contribute to some incredible advances, working with so many others across the world.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mikael. I think you answered really the first question that is on everybody's mind, which is, what do you consider to be the one or two most important developments in medicine in reaction to COVID-19? I think that your answer about the mRNA vaccine that you helped spearhead, as well as the Paxlovid, which is a really meaningful therapeutic intervention for those who've actually had the disease. So you talk about prevention and intervention. That you actually led. So what, to add to that question, Mikael, what do you think really allowed that to happen in the speed that it happened? Because it is, it's unusual for it to go that fast. We all know how long the drug development pipeline is and how long it takes. What do you think allowed that to take place in this unique circumstance?
I think it's a really great question, and there is specifically one aspect that comes to my mind. I think we all felt that in some way we were in one team. We were taking on one game against the virus together, and it was the power of collaboration. And in the sense, the team was boundaryless between Pfizer experts in mRNA working with colleagues in Germany, BioNTech, that advanced the technology originally, and our medicinal scientists working with data coming from all over the world about crystal structure of the key components, the spike of this virus. And I felt the generosity of physicians across the globe, from participation in US of NIH that led a team, the active team, that shared everything we got in knowledge and organized it in an easy to grasp manner. Of course, regulators, in the way the CBER division of FDA were willing to put in endless hours. They were, of course, the referee of this game, but they put in the hours and the encouragement to everyone to stand up for new timelines. And for us, this resulted in this light speed paradigm, doing many things in parallel, have trust in that you can make the impossible possible, and plan for success.
If I can add to that, from my perspective, I think that what Mikael said is absolutely true. The amazing application of science to actually solve a serious disease. This is no little thing. We had to science our way out of it. Really simple. I mean, there was no policy approaches. There was no talking approaches. We had to have the will and the efforts of really extraordinary people, scientists, medical researchers, and the like, coming together to actually conquer this. We had to science our way out of it, if I may use that term. But there's something else, too. I don't want to lose the fact that there were many other developments that actually underscored this. There was a remarkable public-private partnership. It was really the governments around the world were coming together to really try to marshal resources to help underwrite a lot of this. There was the regulatory agencies, as Mikael spoke about, who worked tirelessly to try to make this thing work. And there were, of course, the other government agencies, such as the CDC, that were trying to provide data in a meaningful way that could inform our scientists to do this. But I'm going to do one other shout out, one that we don't think about, but one that I think is absolutely critical. And I will do a disclosure on it when I'm done. And that is reimbursement for telehealth. Paying providers to take care of patients. It's something that we don't think about. But when COVID hit, hospitals shut down. No elective surgeries. If you had a benign tumor, whatever that means, right, Dr. Dolsten? I am not very familiar with too many benign tumors. I don't think a meningioma is a benign tumor, but we'll leave that. But if you have a benign tumor that needed excision, you couldn't get it done. If you had severe congestive heart failure, you could not see your cardiologist. If you had severe brittle diabetes, you could not see your endocrinologist. These are all things that had to happen during the time, in addition to administering the vaccines, in addition to administering the pills. The wonderful science, unless it gets to the patients, is nothing more than a science fair project. It's meaningful to nobody until the Paxlovid gets into the mouth of a patient. Then that last final step are providers. And the reimbursement for telehealth, I think, was absolutely revolutionary. And in my personal opinion, as a practicing physician, I still, believe it or not, I still practice medicine. I will be picking up the neuro ICU during the week of the forum at Hopkins. But this was a major success story because telehealth is here to stay. Telehealth, in my opinion, is here to stay. My disclosure is my wife championed that. She was the acting chief medical officer of Medicare and Medicaid services at the time. The second thing I want to bring up is that public-private partnership, the concept of an Operation Warp Speed to help coordinate all these things from a government standpoint, because who's going to deliver these medicines? You know, the U.S. Postal Service? So we've got to really recognize that there are many things that came together. And we also noticed one final thing that I want to call out is the supply chain vulnerability. We were running out of syringes and needles. And so I think that at some point we should have a discussion about supply chain vulnerabilities, running out of reagents, for example, for the diagnostic kits, things like that. These are things that manifested themselves in this crisis period that allowed us to really marshal our thoughts and see these things and then hopefully start to address them. So it comes to the next question for you, Mikael, and is, what have we learned? What do you think is the most important lesson learned? And quite frankly, what are residual problems that you have seen from your vantage point being head of research for one of the largest drug companies in the world? From your vantage point, what do you think is our lesson learned? And very important, what problems do you think are still here and ingrained that we really need to start to think about now before the next crisis hits?
You know, this is really one of my favorite questions, because I do think the science during the period of COVID have given us probably decades worth of R&D progress that we can deploy across many different areas. And while we still live with COVID and we need to continue to push evolving the interventions of vaccines and treatments, there were some systematic insights in how we work in science and medicines. And you clearly spoke about the power of shrinking the world, whether you call it telemedicine or telescience, allowing teams to come together instantly, whether sitting in Washington, San Francisco, New York, Europe. The power of telescience allow you to come together and share insights. For me, as a physician scientist, it was the experience of a lifetime. I've been engaged in science to make medical advances for 30 years and led the Pfizer science for, I think now, 12 years plus. The systematic learnings was that when you build from research, working in parallel, because you feel the urgency of a major health challenge, in this case a pandemic, and you advance and focus on few scientific problems with all your resources, planning for success, and already at that time point, build your decision tree in the clinical studies that allow you to quickly select the right dose, the right format of your medicine or your vaccine, and build the kind of business framework that allow you to bring science to the table, bring epidemiological insights, and make rapid, bold decisions where to invest to move to the next stage. And of course, we spoke about faster regulatory processes and collaboration. I wish so much that everyone will feel the responsibility on our shoulders to take those learning to the future and not look upon it that we were forced to work in this new way during the pandemic. This is the silver lining of a terrible pandemic, that we got insights how we could work differently. And I hope we can commit to never abandoning those processes, but make them work even smoother and continue to evolve them. We could do so much more than continue to try to keep viruses such as COVID-19 at bay. There are many other respiratory difficult viruses. And I'm pleased to say that just recently, we and others announced progress over the last decades in finding a vaccine against RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, that can cause tremendous suffering and loss of lives among newborns, infants, and older adults. We see advances in oncology, not only the potential use of mRNA vaccines for the future, but how now new ingenious design of small molecules or biologicals can advance immune oncology as a new discipline. But of course, there are other pandemics, not just the infectious, the non-communicable diseases. And I think we're on the verge to have new approaches that can again move the numbers, how we can save lives from the loss of cardiovascular disease, diabetes fueled by a metabolic obesity pandemic. And of course, we're living in a world where everyone is blessed with a longer life, but we also see new diseases rise, more frequent suffering from Parkinson, Alzheimer. So this gives us challenges, but tremendous opportunities. And we need to keep in our minds that we have shown that we can make the unimaginable imaginable. And we need to take that mindset to some of the challenges I mentioned and some of the challenges you're working on.
Thank you, Mikael. And here. I mean, everything that you said is spot on. There's very little I can add to those wonderful insights. I would say also that we need to pay attention to some things that are really ingrained in our system, such as the supply chain vulnerability. The fact that nurses had to wear garbage bags and there were insufficient number of gloves and masks for our first field providers, such as the medics and the paramedics who had to see these patients, is really unconscionable. So we really got to address the supply chain issues. There's no question. No matter what comes next, no matter what surprise comes next, we've got to be better about those simple things that are meaningful, particularly for our providers, such as the nurses, the therapists, and of course the paramedics who are on the frontest of the front lines. So that to me is an ingrained problem that is perhaps out of the realm of medical science, but I think it's absolutely crucial that needs to be considered. So we've got 2 minutes left. Mikael, I want to leave this with you. What is your prediction? I want you to put on your Harry Potter hat and tell me what you think is the next big healthcare challenge that is on our horizon.
I want to say we still are in one of the healthcare challenges. I call it, and we call it, living with COVID. We need to keep an open society. We need to make sure people can socialize. But we should not let go of what we have done overall well, that the virus continue to thrive and need to work together to make sure that vaccines are available and we can have annual vaccination with the state-of-the-art upgraded mRNA vaccines. And we need to take into our hands that with an active, constant responsibility on the shoulders of everyone, we can test and treat, which means if you feel that you're at risk of having acquired COVID, test, verify, and use the treatments available if you're in a risk group. We can save millions of lives on an annual basis, thousands of lives every week, if we continue to adhere to the opportunity that believe in science, integrate science into your lives. I would just say and close, I think we're on the verge of taking on large advances in the combat against cancer. The moonshot against cancer is going to put many people on the moon again, and many diseases can be turned into manageable. I think we live with fear that as we age, the memory-robbing disease of Alzheimer will strike us or dear one. I think we can come together and make tremendous breakthrough, not just incremental, but the same type of advances we did in COVID. And I think cardiovascular and metabolic disease, which, continue to be a major contributor to shortening of our lifespan, I think we are able soon to make sure that working with your primary care, with your primary physicians, will provide them with new intervention, with new active diagnostic instruments, so that we can reverse diseases such as diabetes, that we can make obesity a disease that we can manage through very active treatment. So I think we should look forward where we can embrace life in its richest form with optimism and promise, and can remove fear from diseases. But it will require the power of collaboration, and it will require all of us to work together. And as you said, it's not just scientists, it's the heroic work of many colleagues in the healthcare system that constantly are there for all of us. Each of us are sometimes a patient, but they take responsibility for our lives, for our neighbors. And I think we can have the next 1 to 2 decades where real breakthrough against cancer, infectious diseases, and changing the fate of memory-robbing terrible diseases will happen. Stay tuned with us.
Absolutely. And if I could add to that a little bit before we close, and that is, I believe that one of the largest healthcare challenges we face today is still disparity. Disparity of delivery, disparity of care, and the inequities that go along with it. And the way I want to put that is, the way we can solve a lot of that is actually trust. We have to regain the trust of our patients and of the public to the scientific achievements of which we're talking about today, and Mikael has so eloquently outlined. The fact that 25% of Americans will not take the COVID vaccine, in spite of the fact that it's free and you can get it in your grocery store, is really alarming to me. It is that lack of trust to the scientists, the lack of trust in the medical care community. We have got to overcome that. The best scientific achievements are worthless unless our patients take them. And it's all about trust. So I think that is probably one of our biggest healthcare challenges. We have to learn how to face it. We, with Northwell Health leading the charge, Northwell Health is an amazing organization that's doing amazing things. Pfizer leading the charge in the commercial sector. The government, we collectively have got to get to our patients and the public to learn how to trust the science, trust the providers, because that's what we're all about. Nothing here is negative. We all wanted, everybody on this line wanted to do good for the world, actually. This was our chance to do good. And the fact that 25% refused to take these remarkable advances is a failure on our parts to properly educate and properly develop that trust. So we're out of time. I want to again thank Dr. Dolsten, who is truly, I think it's very clear, an eminent medical scientist. He's a brilliant scholar. He's a visionary. So for him to spend the time, this 20 minutes with all of us, and me in particular, I just feel incredibly grateful to him. So thank you, Dr. Dolsten, for taking the time.
Thank you so much. You are a super moderator, and what a beautiful ending that, touches me personally. When we make medical advances, to see that not everyone can access it, whether it's because of unfair social disparity or because lack of education that leads to distrust. How painful isn't that when we know we have vaccines and therapeutics that can save so many lives? So it's a year of the future where equity is so important. Solidarity with your neighbor, with people in different parts of the world. Everyone should have access to medical advances that can change the life of yours and your neighbors. That creates the respect and trust on a larger scale and a healthier world for everyone, a friendlier world, a more peaceful world. Thank you so much.
Here, here. So thank you all for participating. And again, thank you, Dr. Dolsten.